right, good morning everyone. It's Melissa here. I am going to a business meeting, business networking before I work today. This is to work on my cleaning business, and then I have a class tonight to work on my cleaning business. So I just wanted to share quickly, and I will get into detail about this more, but how do you raise your kids in a trailer? So I want to talk about that. So on the outside, that looks crazy, doesn't it? On the outside, it looks like, holy cow, how do you raise 5 sons in a trailer? And that's exactly what I did. And it was very intentional. It was not something that just like people look at people who are in a trailer and they're like, trailers are trash. Trailers tend to be that way. They do. They're not worth the investment at all. But in the financial sense. But as far as saving money, they are very worth it. Very worth it. So we ended up throwing our trailer away in the end. But I cannot tell you how much money that saved us by being very minimalist and living in a trailer. So what the plan was this. There was a plan. And how do I say this? So I came from a background where I never really had to think about money. I didn't. My mom worked hard. My dad worked hard. I had things in life. I had a lot. I had a grandmother who gave me gifts all the time. I had quite a bit of stuff. I was always out and about with family, doing stuff, visiting people's homes, doing go in high school, very busy. Like I said, I was soccer, basketball, cheerleading, dance, all this stuff, and had a ton of people around me all the time. So, in dating and all that stuff. So, as a matter of fact, my mother gave me my first car. So I just always had things. So when in high school there was that abortion, and I was telling my story yesterday to somebody, and this is kind of my backstory to my social impact. And this is in the trailer is my backstory to my cleaning business, because you'll see why in a minute. But basically, because of the abortion, I was just like, yeah, I am staying home with my son, and I had heard about homeschooling. But because of the abortion, that is how I got saved. That's how I got saved. I was telling someone yesterday, I was basically pregnant for the first time in my marriage, and I didn't really consider myself really pregnant when I had the abortion. I just knew I was in trouble. I was in big trouble. It was just a problem, right? But indeed, I was a mother, but I just did not process that. So, when I was pregnant again, this time, but married, I was just like, wait a minute, why is my son kicking now? Like, why is he kicking now? I don't look pregnant, right? I don't look fat, was my thought process. And I didn't have any child development under my belt. I knew nothing about child development as far as being pregnant, because I just became a mother. And, before that whole process had been shortcutted. So I was like, oh my goodness, wait a minute, and I think it was What to Expect When You're Expecting. I had picked that up, and I'm like, wait a minute, if he's kicking now and I don't even look pregnant, wait a minute, when that abortion happened, wait a minute, 1+1, I'm like, oh my goodness, that was a baby. So the truth started unraveling, and it hit me really hard. It was a ton of bricks. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it wasn't like, like they teach you in school. It wasn't a blob of tissue. It wasn't cells, right? So as I started getting child development under my belt, the truth was hitting me of what really happened. And I hit rock bottom pretty hard in my life. Here I was just going along, pretty naive, just living my life. And I actually saw sin for like the first time. I'm like, holy cow, that was wrong, right? And I remember literally laying on the couch, 1A West Street in Pennacook. This was our apartment together, me and my husband. And I literally remember just crying and like falling apart and crying over that abortion, over everything. And luckily for me, and this is where my pro-life story comes in, luckily for me, I had just gone to a pregnancy center for a free pregnancy test. And I had blurted out the abortion. One of the few times I had told someone about the abortion. I think this was the third person, because I told my husband first, who was my best friend at the time, and then I told my girlfriend Michelle, who was my good friend, and so this was, this was all in the dark. So I had told someone at the pregnancy center, and she's like, God forgives as far as the east to the west, Melissa. And I took all the blame. That's a natural, consequence of post-traumatic stress. It's a natural consequence of the guilt of abortion. I had already felt like I couldn't get pregnant because God was punishing me. And so here I am pregnant and thrilled. I'm pregnant with my firstborn son. And yet I'm feeling like I just could kill myself. Honestly, I felt that way. And I actually wanted to for, a minute, because the guilt and shame was huge, ladies. It was unbearable. Unbearable. I mean, what do you do when you find out the truth? And you're like, wait a minute, I can't live with this. I can't live with this guilt and shame. It's too heavy for me. It's too much. And so that's all I had. I had one verse, guys, and I knew that I couldn't kill myself because I was pregnant, and I knew I had a son, to live for. But yet here I am living with the shame of a child who had been killed. And I loved kids. I grew up in a huge family, tons of cousins. I loved kids. So it was that was the lowest point. Well, probably yes, there were a lot of low points in my life, but that was my rock bottom in my whole entire life, guys. It really was. So, even thinking about it, I could cry, because I remember how awful I felt, how much of that weight was on me. And of course, later on, I did put the guilt where it belonged. But, so I held on to God forgives, right? So as I was kind of wrestling with that in my thought process, I'm like, geez, if God says he forgives me, who am I not to forgive myself? So that's all I had, and that's what I held on to. I literally was like pacing back and forth in my living room, trying to, deal with this with God. I'm like, holy cow, I can't forgive myself, God. I remember talking to God. I cannot forgive myself. I cannot, So, God is good, guys. So, as I was telling my story yesterday, and I'm still a little emotional from this because this lady was tearing up too. I was a little emotional yesterday talking about it because I still remember being in that pit and God lifting me up. So shortly after, I had my son and I was on cloud 9. I was thrilled having him. I had him and boom, took a shower, and just like that, I had brought him home, cleaned the whole home. I was full of energy. I was taking care of him. And I loved being a mom. I absolutely loved having my son. And in a sense, God used my son to also save me, because shortly after, I was invited to church. I'm like, I'm not religious. Don't think I'm going to church. And she's like, well, what religion are you going to teach Alex? And I'm like, religion? What religion? No idea. But I knew I wanted something better for my son. I knew that. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And so it was the second time, and there's a story to that. I went back to church and I got saved. And I totally changed my life, guys. So part of that story in the trailer is this. So we had moved into a trailer. My husband and I found this trailer. We liked it. We moved into it. I didn't plan on being there for 23 years, but we had 3 sons, and then my husband had cancer, which just hit rock bottom financially, and then we had 2 more. But what the trailer did, and I didn't realize it at the time, my focus was very much on if I did anything in my life that was worthy or good. My focus was to do a good job as a mother. That was my number one focus, and to be a good wife. And so, and I was. And what I did was we ended up starting off in this trailer, and then we just decided to stay there and use it. And what I did was here I am, coming from a home where I had a lot of stuff, and we pulled it in so much that my main focus was not, I didn't have to worry about, yes, I got resources for money and stuff, but it wasn't a lot of money that I needed to live in this trailer. And what it did was it freed me from having to have like a big mortgage and having to work. Really, I didn't really have to work. Although I did work because I was brought up to work. I did newspaper routes. I shoveled with my kids. I always did something, but I didn't have to work full time. And my main focus, was to raise my kids up well. And yes, when they're older, they choose their own ways. But on my side, I wanted to make sure I was doing the best I could. And homeschooling was just a tool, and I'll be talking about that more. It was just a tool to raise my family. I just used homeschooling for me. It wasn't even so much about the education, although I loved homeschooling and it was awesome. But it was a tool to say, I'm not working for the school. I am going to have plenty of time with my kids to enjoy my kids. And it was really about my mothering more than the homeschooling. It was about having a ton of time with my kids, having a vibrant, good relationship with my kids. And so there is no regret with that at all, because when you have a ton of time, and time was the key, with your kids, that relationship is going to last throughout life. So I am still, people are like, you are so positive, Melissa. I was just somewhere the other day, and this girl was like, you are so positive. I would have never guessed you went through a divorce or an abortion or this or that. And I was talking to a young girl about this, and she's like, darn, you are positive. And so, I just really was focused in on my self-development. I was focused in on things I wanted to do. And I took all my time and worked on not only my mindset with reading, but working at my relationships, with my sons. And taking what I was saying was I took all that stuff from, being brought up with my mom in the projects, and being able to take all that and redo everything, to just redo the thinking, putting in Christian values, and redo everything. And that is what I did. I was able to transform the value system of, a grandmother who was a raging alcoholic, a mummy dearest to my mother, and be able to put in the mothering skills that my mother did not have because she was raised a certain way, and be able to take care of my sons very well. Very well. They always were nice and clean clothes, bathed, fed, not just the physical stuff, but the spiritual stuff too. And I had all the time in the world to snuggle, cuddle, read to my kids, laugh with them, play with them, enjoy everything. But that's because we chose to be very minimalist, and my husband chose to be home at night with his kids, and we were just very focused on our family. And so, what I want to say is that it's not even so much the trailer as your time, but you can take whatever stuff, ladies, that you had in your life, and you can take the time. Like, I mean, I was in church all the time, so I was always renewing my mind. You can take all that and you can transform just with your time everything so that you have a better system in place with your family. And obviously, I have sons that have gone their own way, but I mean, people are like, how in the world do your sons live with you? Because you must be pretty close to them for your sons to be living with you. And I am. I'm very close to all of my sons. There is one who is in New York right now, and he is like, yeah, Mom, I miss you and all this stuff. But you can do this, ladies. You can take the negative thinking that kids are brats, they're a pain, they're why do I want kids? They're nothing but a bother, and transform everything in your mindset to love and enjoy your kids. And not only that, but to be able to afford your kids and to be like, I'm going to sacrifice. And I knew the long road. I knew there would be a big sacrifice to have kids. And later on, we rented a house and we had much more than we needed. And, we had a 3-bedroom on the lake, and we had a great time on the lake with the boys kayaking and stuff. But, I mean, definitely beyond what we really needed. So when we talk about needs, a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, how did you do it in a trailer? You really don't need much in life. You really don't, in order to survive. I mean, if you have food, clothes, and a roof over your head, you have a lot right there. And we had a very, very rich family life because we had all the time together. I mean, at night, Dad was home, and it was family time every single night. And it was, either let's watch a movie together, let's go for a hike, there was always something. So that is how we built, and we built really strong. I don't know what happened to my husband, who filed for divorce once I got to Colorado, but we did build very strong. At least I did. And so you can do this, guys. You can have children on nothing. And that's pretty much what I had told people. I'm like, we pretty much lived on nothing. I mean, I could live off of food pantries and help with the city, with the rent and everything. So, I mean, even at the lowest of the low, guys, when my husband had cancer and I took the help with the rent, the electric, and food from the city, you can live on nothing with a big family. So I want to really share my passion. And the thing with my cleaning business is also, it wasn't just the resources that built our family, it was my hands. So when we lived in a trailer, it was very important to have systems in place, which I did do. My kids had chores in the morning. We all had chores. We had, school in the morning, a break in the afternoon, and then we had school, a school again, and then a break in the afternoon. So I had to be very, very organized, and obviously the housework could wait. It wasn't the main priority. So make sure it's your hands that, are going to bring success, because I could save us a ton of money with just being very organized and saving us, so much time and money. So that work that I did when I raised my family now goes into my cleaning business, where I am building systems for people, and talked to somebody last night about a business proposition where I can go in and save time and money for people with systems. And I will be also sharing that today on my commercial that I get up and I share with people. Okay, so thanks for joining me, ladies, and I have a very big passion for pro-life. You can do this, and I will be sharing more. Thank you.